Yo, it's effective immediately. I'm DJ Hed. Gina Views is somewhere getting her eyelashes done, but nonetheless, we're going to keep it moving. I do have special guests in the studio right now. Of course, I'm going to get to my fella in a second, but I have the Chief Innovation Officer from the Jump Foundation, Mr. Ken Oliver, here with me.
What's happening?
Welcome to the show. And, of course, the fella himself,
Come
NorCal's own, all of the good stuff.
Yeah.
Album back. It's back album time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Mozzy.
Oh, you already know, brother. Appreciate you having me, my thug.
It's always an event when we link up.
Most definitely.
You know what I'm saying? I appreciate, y'all pulling up and having this little conversation with me about what you got going on. But first and foremost, shout out to Larry Miller as well. Also, shout out to Down North Pizza as well for being a part of the movement and whatnot. I want to give them their flowers. But Mr. Ken Oliver, tell us a little bit about yourself, just so I don't want to skip over nobody's accolades.
Yeah, well, I try to keep it real short and brief. I mean, my story is a cliche for black men. I mean, I did 24 years in the joint.
Yep.
A dime in solitary confinement. They tried to label me on some gang stuff, and I sued the state and got out in 2019 and jumped right into trying to get my hustle on legitimately.
Yeah.
And so I found myself representing our folks up at the state capitol in Sacramento on a whole bunch of criminal justice reform stuff, primarily around voting rights and child support laws and sentencing laws and that type of thing. And then I started looking at what was happening with us economically, and the opportunities that we weren't getting when it came to the workforce, entrepreneurship, that type of thing, and really started diving in deep to what that looked like for us, and been doing that ever since. And I had the great fortune, a few years ago to meet my man Larry Miller up there at Nike and the Jordan brand, and we're just really amazed by how this cat came out of West Philly with a similar background to mine, and was able to be the president of an NBA team. And I'm like, hey, I don't want nothing from you. I just want you to be my mentor and give me the game, right? And so we kind of been locked at the hip ever since, and been trying to affect this work all over the country. And now we pushing in sports and entertainment to open up unlocks for our folks to get in behind the scenes.
As you should, man. Much love to you, bro. I appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you having me.
Man, Mozzy.
Yeah.
Mozzy been quiet, been ducked off.
I've been chilling, man.
Been in the stew.
Yeah, working.
Cooking up.
Harriet Tubman, Underground Railroad.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
I think it's dope every time you pop out, because I think you're not somebody that oversaturate,
For sure.
but you also not somebody that disappear on us.
Nah, most definitely. I just be trying to stay out the way. I got stiff stipulations. Trying to beat that, get that out the way real quick. And then, I can't wait to jump on a flight, sky up, and get up out of here, man.
Yeah.
For sure.
Why now?
Why now? I ain't got to see the world. I I feel like I've been on a crazy run, decade, 10 years plus, no smut. And I've been beating up this region. So I feel like I kind of lightweight box myself in. And so I just want to see what it look like outside of here.
Outside,
Yeah.
So now you popping back out with the new project, new album, Intrusive Thoughts.
Intrusive Thoughts.
Motivation behind this.
We came with all type of names, and
Yep, keep talking.
we came with all type of names, and but I feel like Intrusive Thoughts just kind of lightweight fit where I'm at mentally, and one of the dopest projects thus far, if you ask me. I feel like, of course, everything I drop, anything like my newest, my most up-to-date music is always my dopest music, but I put a lot of growth in this one. Transition. I speak a lot on transition and just trying to take my gangster to the upper echelon.
Yeah. Speaking of transition, because I'm gonna get it early.
Yeah.
On the 10% record, you said, and I quote, "Quit asking why I signed to CMG." So you back home, you back with Empire. Why the transition? Like what brought that upon? Like why that transition?
I feel like the independent game just worked better for me.
For you and how you get in.
Yeah, for how I operate. Just more fast paced. And of course, me and Empire, we had a lengthy relationship. I believe I started with them. And, I function with Gotti heavy, function with Interscope heavy. I just feel like more fast paced for me. I like to get the music out. I don't really like to contemplate and I just feel like they stipulations was tougher than the independent route.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of artists go through that where they jump in. They you used to running your program, how you run your program,
For sure.
and then you jump out there, you go over that fence, and you like, oh, this ain't nothing like.
Nah, this a little tweakier. This a little tweak. I respect it. I respect it. Got the utmost respect for it. But I'm just I've been adapted and accustomed to the race I've been running.
Yeah, how's the relationship with CMG?
Oh, they're my people.
Okay,
we
for
locked
sure.
in.
That's what's up.
Straight up.
Man, Ken, like when you first, I mean, I have hella questions. I mean, I come off as
Get them in.
As intrusive, but when like you say you were in 24 years,
24 years,
all in, and then
all in.
24 years.
Yeah, I got more than that in the system. I started out in YA at 14 and a half, but in this last jolt, I was struck out under 3 strikes law and did 24 straight.
So I did read about that, and the 3 strikes law has been very controversial, especially because of last year's election, the whole Biden-Harris campaign, stuff like that. Joe Biden was one of the main people, or the cabinet that he was a part of was one of the main contributors to 3 strikes and like advocating for all of that stuff like that. So as a black man in this country, do you think that the 3 strikes law is something that we should keep? Is it something that you feel like is just? Like, where you stand on? I mean, obviously, I probably know, but where you stand on that?
You know, my man talked about Harry Tubman. I don't want to get Nat Turner up in here. You know, welcome, right?
Keep it short.
When you asked me about should we keep the 3 strikes law, 3 strikes law was crazy. I mean, you know, I got homies that struck out for stealing a pack of cigarettes, the pizza man, all kind of crazy stuff, right? So I mean, I think that like it was a reaction to the little girl getting killed in Fresno, California, poly class. And there was a reaction by the right to lock everybody up moving who had a record. And, you know, for most of us who come up in these places, we all have records usually from a teenage years on. Yeah. And it was a way to capture a big swath of black and brown men.
Round them up.
And we were over-indexed on people who got struck out. And there's a lot of us are still back up in there right now. If we had pistol cases or other things like that as our 3rd strike and still trying to get out and push stuff in the legislature. So, the 3 strikes law is
get rid of it.
Is garbage.
Yeah. What do you have an alternative?
Yeah, the alternative is you invest in people, right? And so
just in the long term,
the short term and the long term. And what we have to understand as a society is that most of this stuff is rooted in poverty.
Yeah.
So when you go into the cities, you know, cats is reaching and playing the corners because they looking for access to the economy. They're looking for access to the bag, right? And when you don't have that, you willing to jump over counters and do all kind of stuff, and that's kind of our history here. And so, if we invest in really giving people access to entrepreneurship, giving people access to jobs, and I ain't talking about jobs where you put on an orange vest and pick up shit on the side of the freeway. I'm talking about real stuff where you're making $150,000 a year type of jobs. Those are things that we don't usually have access to. Yeah. We don't have access to it because most of us don't get that in the education system. We don't get it in the skill building area, so we do 5, 10, 15, 20 years in prison, and when we get out, we don't know how to do nothing.
No skills,
right?
No
we don't
trades.
have any skill sets, and so if you look at what's happening in the prison system today in California, they still teaching lawnmower repair. Right? They still
Is that right?
Oh yeah,
that's a real thing.
Refrigeration repair, like things that you ain't gonna finna make no money with that.
Teach me how to code.
Yeah, and so they're not teaching anything with tech. They lock us out of the tech market. They lock us out of the things that give us access to the bag because they want to keep us in functional poverty. And if you got any kind of anything about yourself, you ain't finna stay broke. I mean, most of us
they gonna go get to
it. I mean, you got to get it one way or the other, right? And so that's what Larry and I are trying to do to fix that is say like, listen, I want you to get your bag, right? But also I don't want you to do 15, 20 years in the stoops, right? I mean, they catching us, and I got homies getting super gray up in there,
yeah.
And so like, listen, we go through this process, get a few skills up on our belt, I get you $100,000 bag.
So why was it important for y'all to partner and collab with Mozzy here?
Well, I'll tell you how that came to be, but I just want to touch one more thing on the economic piece when I met Larry and why this became important for sports and entertainment. When I went up to the Nike campus and first met Larry told me, Larry's 75 years old, and we're a generation apart. And he said, kid, when I was young in West Philly, man, I used to tell the homies if I could just make $500 a week, I'd get off the streets. And I laughed, right? And he said, what you laughing for? I said, man, I grew up in South LA. I used to tell my homies if I can just get a rack a week, I'm done. When I was growing up in the 80s, right? And so, we forged this mindset to say, like, how can we get these young brothers out there and these sisters out there access to what they're looking for. Because, the average cat ain't out there looking to drive a Bugatti. They just looking to access, get a house, get the twos and fews, take care of themselves, get their girl together, get their kids together and all that, right? So when we did the jump launch on NBA All-Star Weekend, your man came, Ghazi from Empire Records, and we started talking about ways that we could effectuate things around second chances, and that led to this engagement right here.
That's what's up, man. Salute to that, bro. I think that's important too. Like I think it's always it's important for culture to meet reality. Like,
that's right.
You know what I'm saying? You have a real testimony, but hip hop and our culture is the biggest, most influential thing going. So I think it's important to invest there as well.
But we missed one thing about hip hop. Like, it's one thing for Mozzy to be on the mic, right? And the reality is that all of us ain't gonna be Mozzy.
Touche.
We ain't gonna be Nip. We ain't gonna be Future, right? But behind every Mozzy, there's 10 cats that if they using this, they can still have proximity to the streets and who they are, and they can also have proximity to the bag. Like these cats that you got sitting up in here and others I'm sure that you got on your team, learn how to do marketing, learn how to, do PR, learn how to do all the things necessary behind, and that's what Larry did. Larry built the Jordan brand. Nobody ever knew who Larry was.
Yeah.
Larry was. They looking at Mike, right? But he behind the scenes making moves and making stuff happen. So there's a whole bunch of things we could do behind the scenes to keep us close to who we are.
I read, I pulled up some stats too. I think it's based on 2018 study because obviously the numbers are behind in the times. But basically it says within the first year after release, only about 55% of formerly incarcerated individuals having employment, right? And then it goes on to say in the article, employment rate increased gradually. And then it says around 70 to 75% of formerly incarcerated people find some sort of employment, but they're often lower wages.
Yeah, count that number. Quote that number.
75%.
Well, I'm talking about the salary number. The average person who does have a job is making $10,000 a year less.
Right.
I would want you.
Well, that's why I emphasized. It said often with lower wages and job stability compared to the general population.
That's right. You can go to Civic Center in San Francisco and you see cats, standing outside the outhouses, with a vest on, and these are cats that are out of the penitentiary getting barely nothing, and you ask to survive in a place like Oakland or San Francisco or
California.
LA. I mean, it's,
they're going to go reoffend.
It's expensive, right? So, like, at what point can you tell a grown man, hey, I want you to sit out here in the corner and do this for $14, $15 an hour when you can't even pay rent?
Yeah.
You can't even pay a decent car note.
Well, I did want to get both of y'all opinion. I know Mozzy's no stranger to, the system as well, but I just finished Wallow's book. Shout out to Wallow.
Fellas, my man.
Shout out to Wallow Peoples. I just finished his book, and he was speaking a lot about staying motivated while incarcerated, and he also talked about going before the parole board. Well, before I get there, I've asked Mozzy before, but maybe your perspective has changed. What about staying motivated to people who are probably either listening to this or watching this while still inside?
Yeah. For me, it was different. I sat across from a white man who didn't know me and told me I got 52 years to life and I'm gonna die in prison.
Damn.
And so I refused to accept that, and that was just a personal thing. I was like,
it's a choice.
It's a choice for me to accept it or not. And so when I went in, I made sure I stayed connected to the streets, and I mostly did that through reading, keep myself politically aware, following tech. I went in the mid '90s when the internet wasn't even around, but when I got out, I knew just as much about the internet as anybody else because I kept my nose up in where the money was at.
Yeah, Wallow said the same thing.
Yeah, old head told me a long time ago, stay close to the money, follow the money. So, I'm watching shit happen while I'm in the penitentiary, but I'm seeing billions being made by these young kids, 20, 22, 23 years old, selling apps to Facebook for $1 billion. And I'm telling the homie, like, we in the wrong business, right? If you look at Instagram, we was doing that in photo albums in the early 80s, cutting out pictures and then icons and doing our photo albums and stuff. So I'm like, man, we need to start thinking about things in a different way because these youngsters out there getting this bag and we ain't close to it. So that's what I was doing. And so I just refused and had a belief that I wasn't going to let that man determine my fate, and I didn't.
Mozzy? Motivation.
While in there?
While in there.
Well,
I know you got people tapping in.
Most definitely. I be trying to keep them motivated and lit. I pass the phone around every time they call. They looking at all. It's mainly, but it's. I feel like what I'm doing right now is motivating for them, and just me being out here, being in the position that I'm in, is keeping them lit. They living through me. You know what I'm saying? In a sense, you feel me? So when they call, I'm picking up the phone. I ain't dodging phone calls. I'm looking out. I just got done, throwing an alley-oop for somebody as far as they appeal, looking out for appeal lawyers, et cetera, et cetera. But I feel like when I was in there, it was smooth for me because I wasn't looking at all day. So the motivation was just getting back to the streets.
Different.
Yeah, but I know a lot of people in there that it's a lack of motivation. They ain't even motivated enough to go to the law library and just, you know what I'm saying, me tweak on their case and try to find a loophole, etc. But then you also got some stand-up fellas that's, you know, I got my partner in there right now. He doing 15. Well, he been in there for 15. They gave him an elbow, but whatever the case, he you know, he staying motivated. He ain't on drugs in there.
Oh, that's
you know
dope.
what I'm saying? He programming, doing what he supposed to do. And I think the sole source for his motivation is just reunification, just trying to get back to his kids, his young life, his people.
I think the commonality is just staying connected while you in there. Wallow also talked about in his book going before the parole board and the battle between. I mean, I'd be a little different if you ain't looking for if you don't have an extended stay like that. But for those that have been through that or looking to go through that, I remember the battle that he was having internally. Do you go in there and keep it a bean, or do you go in there and put on a front? Like, what's the thought process behind that? And if you can lend any thoughts on that?
I mean, you know, a lot of cats in prison have read Prince Machiavelli, and the ends justify the mean. Whatever it takes to get the result, in my mind, as long as you ain't sacrificing who you are. So some cats play the program route. They go do all the programs and get all the chronos, and they go up and they're buttoned up. I ain't mad at them if that gets you the result. And some cats are a little bit more defined. I didn't do this, you know, whatever the circumstance is. And oftentimes they get swatted around a little bit different because you're dealing with an audience that ain't receptive to our get down 9 times out of 10. They want to see you a certain type of way. So, you know, what I tell cats in there is, listen, man, keep your head up in the books. Do whatever is required to get to your kids, get to your girl, get to whatever it is you're trying to get to. You can get out. Like, they are freeing people, right? It ain't like in the 90s when, you know, the governors were talking about you dying in prison, you ain't no getting out. You play your position, you can get a computation. I know a lot of cats got computations. You know, my boy Erline, who does Ear Hustle, he done got computation part and all kind of stuff just from running a podcast, right? So I try to keep dudes motivated. And to Mozzy's point, I think the more of us that are out here doing it and they seeing
Spreading
what
the
we
word.
doing, yeah, man, I get from penitentiaries all across the country, cats I don't even know. They mamas and sisters is calling, can you get us a job? Can you do this, do that? So it provides motivation where they can see a little bit of light. They're like, oh, man, I can get out there and make a bag. I can get out there and do a little something. Where previously, you know, we didn't have that, you know, coming through,
sure.
right? So it matters.
Speaking of that, the Jump Foundation is like key in that, you know, providing opportunities and resources and stuff like that. I also know that shout to Down North Pizza, hiring exclusively formerly incarcerated individuals, male and female.
That's
which
dope.
That's crazy.
For sure.
I think those things need to be highlighted as well. You know what I'm saying? Those are the things as far as like we can bring awareness to with our platforms too. For you, Mozzy, when you go into the studio to make this project, were you thinking about all of that stuff before? Because I remember when we talked the last time you dropped, is the perspective different now? Because I remember you had all the homies on the cover and whatnot.
Yeah.
And that end result is different than being locked up.
For sure.
Is the thought process musically different now than it was before? Or how has it changed?
Nah, I think it just naturally oozes out of me. When I get in that studio, I let the beat, I let the music, I let the environment just talk to me. So it just naturally oozes out of me. But yeah, I just, you know, they motivation alone. You feel me? One of my biggest jewels that I carry with me is I can't afford to go to jail. I feel like they losing out. You feel me? And so that's why I'm big on transitioning. Just like we made it thus far, they can't throw all this away. You feel me? And so I'm trying to find it's a common ground. It's like you pulling. That's where intrusive thoughts come from, because you're really trying to elevate and grow, but it's like the trenches still got a hold of you, and so it's tweaking your thought pattern. But nah, you know, I be looking out for mines. They come home. I built the whole studio. You know what I'm saying? And just to try to save the trenches, spend my own chicken. They, you know, parked. I bring them out here. As soon as they get out here, they taking pictures. They ain't never been outside that little radius that they stuck in.
Touché.
You feel me? And you know, a lot of them come home from prison. I move them in there, You feel me? They go back to Sacramento, end up going back to prison or dying. So it's like the longest stint for them is actually coming out here and vibing with me, locking in with me, and just maneuvering with me. So in a sense, everybody that's in the pen, that's from my jurisdiction, they can't wait to come home to lock in with me. They feel like, in a way, it's like I'm a savior for them.
We got a few more minutes, but two more things I want to hit on for both of y'all. The first thing is you got a song called Under Oath on the album, and obviously what's going on right now is insane. The amount of like people telling on each other, and what I guess what I want to ask for both of y'all is discernment. How do you know, and how do you pick and choose the people you have around you? Like for people who may not have that muscle of discernment, like they don't know your man's like he might be kind of shaky, or this dude might not be the one that I need to be investing in, or having him around certain things like that. How do y'all manage y'all discernment?
Yeah, I mean, for me, you know,
because your shit is crazy.
ain't nothing bulletproof, right? I mean, you can grow up with somebody, you know, for 20, 30 years, and they end up, you know, being at a crossroads in their own life and make a decision that had nothing to do with you, right? And they could.
So it's not personal if they tell us.
It's not. It's really a reflection and testimony on them and who they are as a character, right? And so I've seen many cases where people are down 15 to killers, really? Guys that grew up, you know, in areas and did their thing, and they turn up testifying, right, for their own reasons, right? And I think that for me, keep your circle real small, and try to limit the mistakes that can happen, right? Don't talk so much. We are very vocal people in many cases, you know, with our friends and loved ones and all the rest of that. And so, like, if you got something that ain't meant for everybody, recognize that it ain't meant for everybody, you know, and keep it limited in what you do. I think that's how you manage the risk.
Yeah.
Same type of time in your own circle, smaller than a dot, stiff arm, Heisman Trophy, fall back, watch out. If it ain't beneficial, it's artificial.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I just feel like, I just I play everybody from a distance. You know what I'm saying? As far as the ones, it's crazy because the nerds in my circle, no disrespect when I say the word nerds.
Nah, I'm a nerd. I don't take offense to it at all.
But the nerds in my circle is the ones who keep me grounded, the ones who, you know what I'm saying, that enlighten me. Like, bruh, I ain't, you know what I'm saying, I don't smell him. What, you feel me? Whatever the case. But so I think just navigating. It's hard. It's hard because it's my loved ones. These my loved ones in the trenches. These the ones that they are part of this story that I'm scribbling. And so I try to keep them. I try to keep them close, but at the same time, I play them at a distance.
How do you? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead and ask a question.
How do you? I guess a lot of people are going to jail just because, like you said, they talk too much. Everybody's just get on podcasts, they get on platforms, and everything's content at this point. I've stayed away from those types of things, but coming from being incarcerated, are those conversations also happening inside where it's like, man, well, because I the commonality is what you in for. But from what I hear, I've never been incarcerated, but from what I hear, most of the time the homies know before you get there. They done already looked up your paperwork, and like they already know what's up.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so 100%. So you don't have to have a conversation when you get there. I already got your jacket.
Most of the time. Some of it comes out afterwards, you know, so and so and all that. I do want to comment on one thing, though, because I do think it's something in our community that Larry and I are trying to dispel. At least I know that I am, right? Okay. And that is that this notion that if you doing a 9 to 5, you get in your bag in a different type of way, it's like it's square, that is this and that.
Yes.
Because the reality is that there's been plenty of homie funerals, and the penitentiaries are filled with us that feel like we can't be part of the economy, or we can't climb up in a different way other than either being on a basketball court or football field in front of a microphone. And hats off to those that are gifted enough to do that, right? Mm-hmm. The reality is that most of us ain't never going to do that. 99% of us ain't never going to do that, or have a gold record, or have a Heisman, or be Jalen Hurts, or do none of that, right? Yeah. And so we as young black men have to recognize there's a lot of ways to get a dime. Right, and we got to figure out all the different ways to get there. Doesn't mean you have to sacrifice who you are. You have to understand life is a chessboard. Right, you can play the chessboard of the hood, or you can play the chessboard in corporate America. You can play the chessboard in all different types of areas. It doesn't diminish who you are as a man.
Yeah.
Right, if you're able to take care of your family. I got a son that's in his 30s, and he's always talking about, Pop, you on some square shit now. And I'm like, listen, all the square cats got all the money and all the women. I hugged a plastic pillow for 24 years. I wish I would have squared up.
Wow.
You feel what I'm saying? So I don't look at it with what I'm doing now in philanthropy or what I'm doing with social impact work, doing a 9 to 5. Like I work 70, 80 hours a week, busting my ass, right? I want people to respect that, and they should respect that the same way they respect a cat that's on the mic doing his thing in front of the camera. And we have that bad in social media and all kind of other things. We think that's the only route. It ain't the only route. If you look at what Larry's life is, Larry had the life and built the life coming out of the penitentiary, did 10 years, for those who don't know, that anybody would dream to have. He built the baddest brand in the world for Michael Jordan, and then was the president of an NBA team. This is like one of us out the streets. He was sitting up there courtside with people like Mark Cuban and the rest of it, getting his bag in the NBA, running a whole team, right? Like, I don't know any cat that wouldn't want to do that, right? And that was about as square as you can get, right? And so, like what we trying to do is tell people, like, let's use our intellectual capital and currency, right? Let's understand this is a chessboard and play the game according to what we need and what we want.
Man,
you know,
that's very important. I appreciate you sharing that. Also, I think just as a community, we should probably share resources more. So that's the other thing. That's the last thing I want to touch on is resources that are available to people, whether they inside, coming out, going, coming home, about to turn themselves in. What are some good resources or things or methods that you guys could like provide for them?
So
like, go ahead. Like any type of exercise. Because I remember when we talked, when you went to go turn yourself in, your prep for that. But coming home, what's that look like as well?
I'm just big on financial literacy. I think financial literacy, I think just just tweaking it, finding something that you love, and concentrating your forces and just beating that into submission. So like right now, when I talk about transition, I'm tired of music. I'm tired of rap. I'm tired of that. You feel me? I've been getting banged in the stock market though. I don't know if we're going to blame it on Trump, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But I've been diving in that, and I'm just so, like, I'm committed to it. I wake up every day, and that's what type of time I'm on. And I feel like, I ain't going to get it in the first year. I might not get it the second year. But the way I'm devoted and, just my consistency and, I'm waking up reading charts. I'm waking up listening to the news. I'm et cetera, et cetera. So, like, that's something that I found that, it kind of just, it motivate me to keep going. But, I think just financial literacy, like even for my kids, that's what I'm big on. I feel like that eliminates desperation. You ain't got to do nothing desperate for your chicken. That eliminates, somebody manipulating them. You feel me? And they're doing something strange for a little bit of change. That's how they say it. Yeah. So that's what I'm on. But I think even for somebody that's behind the walls, if they just get in that type of state of mind right now, when I was there, it was like school for me. I was in there sitting down, with everybody who was playing with chicken. Anybody that was in here about some money, that's who I was sitting down hollering at. Hey, bro, what's the fastest way to $10 million? Integrity.
Wow.
When he told me, I ain't believing. I'm like, nigga, integrity, what is it? I'm talking about, like, how can I get 10 million?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Nigga say real estate or stock market or.
Give me a tip.
Yeah,
Right.
But he said integrity, and I tweaked on that. And it made sense because if I'm 100, and I'm pure and I'm good for it, and I say, hey, let me hold a little 100,000. I got you. My integrity, I'm gonna do the right thing when nobody look. I got you. You gonna front me that 100. Same thing with the banks. They gonna get it to you. They gonna run your file and they'll fork it over. So that's just what I'm big on as far as, and that's what I preach to my young. I be sending them books while they behind the walls. I ain't sending them no what they call them little hood books and things. Nah, we ain't sending none of that. It's just straight self-help books, motivational books, anything that can inspire them or just motivate them to get some money.
I consider myself a very smart person, but that was game he gave you.
For sure.
The fastest way is integrity. That's some real shit. Go
ahead.
Well,
when you look at what he's talking about, integrity will lead you to a lot of things. It don't always come in the form of short-term cash. It comes in the form of long-term opportunity. Because if I'm solid, right, and you see I move in a certain way, I'm the person that you want next to you. Right, and so what allowed me to do some of the stuff I did out of penitentiary, not because I ain't no smart nobody. I got a 9th grade education. I got my proficiency exam in Sacramento Car Holding Youth Authority. Right, what allowed me to move the way I do and get some of these opportunities, other people saw something in me that I didn't even see. Just based on the way that I was moving, they cracked open doors. And then once I was in the doors, I was positioned, because of what I was doing in the penitentiary, to take advantage of the opportunity. Everything is about how you position yourself. Put yourself in position. It ain't going to happen today, to your point. It might not even happen tomorrow. It might happen for 3 years from now. But if he keeps on doing what he's doing, he's going to be in position that when that daylight open, when that window crack, he's going to go up in there Buffalo and he's going to get everything, right?
For sure.
Everything nailed down. And that's the way it works. That's what we got to see. Short-term gratification. Man, I've been living like that since I was a young one, man. And the return on investment, I tell all of them, we in a nonprofit business long range game.
How can people get in touch with you, bro?
You can email me, ken@thejusttrust.org. I throw my number out there because I know we got folks listening to it. It's 510-789-7180. Holla at me. I'm helping people all across the country get into businesses, get opportunities, sports, entertainment, however you want to do it. We can find a way to make sure you don't go back up in that 6x9, brother. And that's really what I'm trying to do.
Man, thank you, bro. That's real as fuck. I appreciate that. Mozzy, Intrusive Thoughts is out everywhere. Make sure you go get a bar of that. Go tweak on that.
Go tweak on that mandatory snatch.
Is there something? Is there a record on there that's significantly special to this moment in time for you right now?
I don't want to be a role model.
Damn.
Role model. I think role model was dope. It's basically, I know the young life look up to me as far as like gangland landlord, you know what I'm saying, Mr. Blotted Eye himself, et cetera, et cetera. But, I'm in a different phase of my life, and I don't want to mislead the youth. I don't want to mislead the youth. I don't want to be the one responsible for that. And so that's what role model was kind of like. It's like an internal affair. It's like an internal battle of me genuinely wanting to see y'all shine and walking in a light that you think, I became successful in might not get you that. Yeah. And, I don't want to inspire you to throw your shit away.
Man, thank you. I thank both of y'all for coming through, bro. Make sure you go tap into Intrusive Thoughts. Get at my man Ken. If you want to throw the email out one more time.
Ken@thejusttrust.org.
There you go, man. Tap in with the homies, man. I appreciate y'all for pulling up. Thank y'all for coming through.
My dog, appreciate you.
Always, bro. It's effective immediately.
Peace.